Nick, welcome to the Bainbridge podcast.
Glad to be here, Ben. Thanks for having me.
So, Nick Allen is the founder, CEO of Geologie. Nick, you have an incredible backstory because you've had a lot of different experiences. I would love for you to go into more detail, but just to quickly summarize it, you started as an investment banking analyst, switched to research equity, then got into the rideshare business with three different experiences in the rideshare business, which is really cool. And then got into skincare with geology.
Wild
So
ride.
if you could just, yeah, how did, yeah, sort of take us through like how you got started and you moved into startups and out of finance, and then how you
Yeah.
chose skincare, after rideshare.
The finance part is like you get out of school, you're not really sure what to do. You're like, well, I'm going to go do something hard where I'm going to learn a lot. That's like finance, that's investment banking. I definitely learned a lot. The culture was, not my fit. But I really did enjoy, banking was kind of brutal. Equity research was actually really fun. Um, I covered clean tech and in the sort of first boom of the like green tech days. And, I had my own team and did my own coverage, and it was wild. Stocks moved all over the place. I was at Morgan Stanley. I had the biggest banking pipeline there was. Um,
Wow.
I was a top performing analyst just basically because stocks moved so much. So I had lots of opportunity to make calls, and it was super fun. But post crash of 2008, uh, clean tech was dead, and Wall Street wasn't a place that I wanted to hang out at anymore. So it was time to move on, and ended up at a small venture fund, and we did a bunch of incubation efforts there, and that's where I got like my taste of, you know, early stage being a founder.
So at the VC fund, were you doing clean tech or green tech there, or
Yeah,
okay?
kind of a mix of stuff. It was there was no GPs. It was just one partner basically, and his money, and me and him, and so we had kind of carte blanche to do whatever we wanted. So that was a mix of like early stage stuff, very like late stage pre IPO stuff into the public markets, and a bunch of incubation efforts.
That's cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it
So
was
you
cool.
saw all the stages. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I mean
So then what?
the early stage thing, it was a real eye opener for me, right? Like I was a public markets guy, so here I am getting, pitched on seed stage stuff, and I was kind of like, wait a second, this is how this works? Like,
Like what? I mean, you're just like, this is ridiculous. You've
yeah, I was
got
like, this
none
is
of it
ridiculous.
figured
I'm like,
out.
you come up with an idea, you go around town and you have your PowerPoint and you're like, hey, I need $2 million for this idea. We haven't done much at all with it yet. It's nothing. It's just kind of brewing in here. And then people write checks. I was like, huh, okay.
Dude, those first like dozen pitch meetings to you must have been awful. Like
Well, it's just funny. I just didn't really
you're
understand.
out there like, I don't know, we haven't figured out any of this.
I didn't really quite understand that's how it worked. And listen, I should give a caveat here. This is, San Francisco in 2010 to 2012, you know, uh, a privileged place to be. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that kind of access, but I found it to be. I was like, oh, well, okay. If I wanted to start a company, like, there's definitely a path to do this. Come up with a great idea that you have. Ideas are a dime a dozen, but I think the thing that like dawned on me was like the product market founder fit kind of concept, which I think I had in my first company, did not have in my second company, and I think have in my third. But it's an important concept.
What does it mean to you?
It means like you got to have a pretty good idea,
Mhm.
You got to have a market that's worth going after, and then you got to be the guy or gal to do it, to like have the, you know, um, whether it's the little bit of insight, whether it's the like the will to keep going and fight through adversity, or what have you. You know,
Yeah.
like my middle company was a rideshare company for kids, and I don't have any kids, and you know, I just wasn't the right founder for that, and it didn't work
Well, let's
out.
go to the one right before that to set the. So the
Sure.
one right before was Sidecar, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, it was sidecar. So it was like, I mean, a lot of the story behind it's kind of funny. Basically, Uber had started. It was a black car service, and we, basically we meaning me and my co-founders, got Jahan Khanna and Sunil Paul, and we were thinking maybe we should just go rip off Uber, right? Like let's just make a clone of Uber and we'll go attack them. But at the time it was you know, post like 1%, you know, Wall Street 1% kind of thing, and it was
mm,
like who can pay, you know, $60 for like a 3 block ride across the town, you
right,
know, in a black car service. Like there's not a market for that, right? Like okay,
right.
cool, great for guys in New York and Silicon Valley, but like let's get real, it's not a big market. And so I was like, okay, well, how can you make this a big market? And I was reading a blog post about Uber, and the last line of the blog post said, uh, "The cat's really going to be out of the bag when someone builds an Uber that lets people pick people up in their own cars."
Whoa!
And I
That
was
was in
like,
like some
"Oh,
random blog post.
random blog post." And Jahan, with one of our other engineers, was there, and I was like, guys, this is what we should do. And Jahan that said something like, "Well, how are we going to get around the taxi laws?" I was like, "Well, remember the uh, um, Radiohead album In Rainbows, where you actually didn't pay for it? You could pay whatever you want. It was a donation." I was like, "That's how we'll get around the commercial laws. We'll give it away, and we'll just suggest what people pay." And
Yeah.
that was basically the start. Um, we launched that. Then Lyft, which was a company called Zimrod, launched pretty quickly after that. Uber came down market with their Uber X. We battled it out, and you know, Uber's Capital beat us, and Lyft's Pink Mustache beat us, and we were third. And you know, history is history.
What? I mean that's a very painful experience. I have experienced that myself. Um, what do you think in reflection? Is it capital? I mean, it's obviously execution and capital and a combination of things. But I mean, when you're in that situation as a founder or a team,
Yeah.
what do you do, or do you have any insights? I'm not sure I do from my time through it.
Um.
Raise more money faster, I guess.
Yeah. You know, there were things that are obvious at the time, and like it's you know, playing armchair quarterback, if that's the term. Looking
Yeah.
back, like, you know, Uber and Lyft were very focused, um, and we lacked some focus in a couple critical areas. And once the you know, we were neck and neck for a while, and once, you know, one of the other guys started to pull away, Uber became like a clear front runner, and then it was us and Lyft battling it out. And
I see.
you know, it did come down to like capital, right? Like we should have raised more faster. I think at the time, um, you know, people never, we didn't all quite realize like how much money it was going to take to do these kind of things, right? Like
Yeah.
at, at the time, I think Uber had raised 60 million in that, or 100 million maybe, right? And that was like,
Yeah.
whoa, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Right. And what
we
did you
should have
guys
raised
raise at
more
that point?
faster and really gone after it. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Okay. So Then you went to Shuttle. You did your next startup. This is the rideshare for kids, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was it was a great business model. I'm not sorry, not a great business model, a great product. You know, it really solved a pain point, but it was super
Yeah,
difficult to scale. Super difficult to scale. You
right.
know, we were picking kids up and the safety features and all of that, and it just required a lot of capital. We raised a Series A, but when it was time to raise a Series B, the amount needed and the appetite from the venture community for gig work business models at the time was kind of fading. There was some
Mm,
high profile busts in the category, and just,
mm,
we weren't able to raise the funds to continue it.
yeah. And then you had like a brief stint at GM, right? Was that sort of the finishing of your auto
Yeah, I'd
phase?
say so.
Like
GM
cured
had
you
bought.
of wanting to work at big companies?
Yeah, GM had bought Sidecar. They had bought Sidecar. They had made investment in Lyft. They had made a big investment in Cruise, and they were just trying to figure out like, hey, what do we do with all this stuff? So I spent a little bit of time there trying to kind of guide some of that strategy. Ultimately, I was working on autonomous vehicle sort of commercialization strategy, and that all went under
Yeah,
um, Kyle and Cruz. So
got it.
I got laid off, and time to go do something else.
All right, so now we're at the birth of geology, which I'm
Yeah,
excited to hear.
yeah. Well, when I was working for GM, I was in Korea, and I bought
Yeah.
my girlfriend a fancy set of Korean skincare products, and I was close to turning 40 or getting closer to turning 40, and I was one of those guys who had literally never washed his face in his whole life. And so
Hmm.
I did her whole like routine, and I was like, whoa. It's like, why have I been denying myself this pleasure? That is so
Yeah.
nice. And as I uh, was looking for something to do, I was like, do I start another company? Do I get a job? Like, what do I do? I didn't really want to get a job.
Right.
So, but I didn't really have. I had been working on a bunch of different startup ideas, but like nothing was quite clicking. And I kind of dove into the, personal care market, and there was a lot of exciting things to go after there. And it's a big business, growing a lot. It's very high margin. It's a very high repeat usage rate. So a lot of attractive um, characteristics from like a business perspective. And then, I was like, you know what? I've been building apps and doing all this kind of thing. Like maybe it'd be fun to create a real product.
Yeah.
So, I saw Geologie started out as a men's skincare brand. We're much more than that now, but, saw that like product market founder fit potential.
Hmm.
Just went for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you
Didn't,
thinking at the time about the replenishment and the consumable nature and the margins, or oh, you were?
yeah.
So
Oh,
those were like all.
absolutely. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
like step one. I put my Morgan Stanley equity analyst hat on and was like, what is this? How do these businesses work?
Yeah.
Um, like I knew direct to consumer was hard.
Hmm.
Um, it was already in sort of its kind of later stage of development. And to start a direct to consumer company, I think I needed it needed to check certain check boxes from like a business model perspective, right? Like, very high gross margins and repeat purchase lends itself to like, hey, you're going to need marketing dollars. So if you have a high gross margin, there's your marketing dollars.
Yeah.
And repeat purchase, um, you can lends itself to a subscription business. So, I'm not sure how people start, like apparel brands. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. Well, I was
But
just thinking as you were going through that, like, I wish more founders did that. Equity analysts sort of, hard look at their business before totally falling in love and
yeah,
kind of deciding
it's a
to
little
spend
bit
years.
like, I think there's two types of entrepreneurs. Maybe there's more, but like if you bucket them up, there's like ones who fall in love with this idea and they're like born to do this particular thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they just kind of have to do that. And then there's another breed that's like, I'm going to try this thing, I'm going to try this thing, I'm going to try this thing, I'm going to try this thing. And like, that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think I'd gotten to the point where I sort of realized that like, that's kind of what I did. Like, I
Yeah.
wasn't ripe for the job market anymore. Um, so when you're choosing things to work on, it's like, man, especially as you get older, right? I was approaching 40, I wasn't 25.
Right.
Well, if I'm going to work on something, it's should have hopefully a good chance of success.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is like, so this is 2018. So yeah, you were sort of like, it wasn't that kind of the super shiny D2C market, um, but it was still frothy, kind of, no, or not really.
God, probably, but like I also didn't want to go play the frothy game,
Yeah.
right? Like I had raised money, growth at all costs, lose control of the business, like all that kind of stuff. I'd played that game and lost a couple
Yeah.
times and didn't really want to do that again.
Right.
So, part of the attraction was like, oh, this is a business with clear positive unit economics.
Yeah.
I can just like build a very good business here without like insane amounts of capital.
Right.
I mean, I'd say we've probably raised a little bit more than I thought we would probably need out of the get go.
Mm-hmm. Do
Um,
you mind sharing
but
what that was, that amount
we've raised north of 5 million.
at that stage?
No, no. When I
Oh,
started it, we raised tiny amounts of money. It was like friends and family. Then I did some
oh, like
saves,
hundreds of thousands
hundreds of thousands. Yeah,
types. Okay.
yeah. It was like, but I treated it. It was, I went about it like a app and a
Yeah.
software product, not like a physical goods product, which had its pluses and minuses, right? Like I didn't flesh out a brand. I didn't like we basically um I met this dermatologist. He helped with the formulations. His name Dr. Zhu. He's still part of the team. Like he's core to our success. But after we started iterating on formulas, we kind of put it out there in a big beta test, and like we just kept like iterating and changing, which is with physical product can be a little bit challenging. I
Right.
think if I redid it again, I probably would have spent maybe more, not more time, but I don't know, more of a point of view.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to say, right? Like you kind of got to get things out there and like see how people react to them.
How how do you? I mean, it's when you're building software or apps, like you can get feedback so quickly, right? Or even pre that, right? Like a false landing page or one of those, right?
Yeah.
What do you do for skin cream, or a cleanser? Like you're waiting for, like, it takes a while to formulate it, make it, get it in people's
Yeah.
hand.
Those
Now
kind of
you're
things,
like waiting, like,
those kinds of things you have to just those take a little bit longer, right? Like
yeah,
especially packaging. Packaging takes forever. It's like the most
really,
frustrating part of um, this process. Like you can make the goop that goes in the bottle pretty quickly.
yeah,
Packaging takes forever.
interesting,
Um, yeah, so you can't really iterate on that too much, but like take like little elements of the business model you can totally iterate on, pricing you can iterate on, marketing channels you can iterate on, like who's your customer, who's buying it.
right?
We collected a lot of data of like our product was personalized, so we asked you a lot of questions. Who are you? How old are you? What are your skin needs?
Did any
So
of
that
that surprise you? Like
what's
you
that?
thought of, did any of that data surprise you? Like you thought you had a different type of customer than you actually did?
Yeah. I was shocked at how young the customer base was.
Really?
Hmm.
Because like you assumed that people were going to be more like you.
Yeah.
Or interesting.
Starting to look a little older, a little tired.
Not true. So you were
Yeah.
like attracting like 20-year-olds and stuff, and you're and like, whoa, where'd this come from?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Uh, yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, it's this balance of like, um, the older customer is less price sensitive, versus the younger customer. So it's like this balance of like, who are you marketing to and where are you spending your dollars and how you're monetizing your customer base and thinking about lifetime value and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Um. So okay, so you're iterating. You're starting to get feedback. You're starting to tweak the business models. I think you guys have done an awesome job on the subscription. And apparently that was already kind of you thought about that from launch. Did you
It was subscription from the beginning.
from the beginning?
Like,
Okay.
yeah, when we first launched, you couldn't even buy a la carte.
Wow.
Like, you
You
had
were
to
like
buy
committed.
subscription.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
was
like,
everybody? Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I'm very glad that we made those kind of hard decisions off the bat. Because I think it's really tough without subscription economics. I
Really?
mean, we're moving more and more away from that. It's funny, like, one time purchase, and as I think there's probably some subscription fatigue out there to some degree.
Hmm.
Um, and you do have to meet your customers where they're at, but you also have to kind of make decisions that are, hopefully really good for your business, right?
Yeah. So the value of the subscription right off the bat is that I guess you dramatically increased your repeat purchase rates as a result. Like you weren't constantly trying to resell somebody every time to buy
Yeah,
more, buy more, buy more.
yeah. Basically, a lot of our business model was, well, one, most, as a men's focused brand, like most guys didn't have a skincare routine of any kind, right?
Uh-huh.
So, 70-80% of our customer base had never even tried it before. So the business model was, look, we're going to give you a trial, in some cases free, just pay shipping or whatever. And, so it's not a big cash outlay up front. It's like, hey, you give us a try. Sampling is so big in the cosmetics business, right?
Okay.
This is like our version of sampling. So we would lose money up front, and we needed this subscription at least to get to the second or third purchase. We do have a bit of a fall off after that, but like if you can get 50% of the cohort to the second purchase, well, you're breaking even right there. And that's a pretty fast return on capital.
Yeah. Interesting. And so then, yeah, I mean, it adds like a layer of complexity to the business because you have these like mechanics that you're now, or these levers that you have to figure out how they work. Like, were you just constantly experimenting with prices and discounts and
Yeah,
shipping
a ton of
times?
that by channel, a lot by channel, right? Like some discount works better in a particular channel, like paid social versus search, and um, it's a constant like balance of CAC, AOV, repeat purchase rate. You know, it's always moving around on you.
Yeah. And what you said, like there's subscription fatigue. Like what does that mean to you?
Well, now people have everyone everyone wants to have a subscription business.
Yeah.
So I think consumers are like, look at like apps like Truebill and things like that. They're like,
Right.
hey, you have all these things that you're paying for just over and over, and a lot of it's digital subscriptions, for lack of a better word, right? Like
Right.
it's like, oh, I have this New York Times, Netflix,
Right.
Spotify, this 3 workout apps, Babbel, Duolingo. I'm just kind of listing off most of mine, but
Yeah. Right.
so I think a lot of the subscription fatigue is there, and then you have like with real world goods, it's like build up. It's like,
Right.
oh, am I getting the right cadence here? Am I using this product, in the right way that I don't
How have
have
you
that?
dealt with that? I mean, you guys have done some really interesting changes there, but like, how did you, like the build up, the people aren't using it as quickly as you had thought, or they want to pause. Like, how do you handle all that?
Yeah, it's really tricky. You give people the easiest thing to do is give people the tools to like make the changes themselves, and
Hmm.
hopefully like the consumer likes your brand and your product enough to go through the effort.
Yeah.
For us it's a little tricky, right? Because we most people start on like a full set, so it's a bunch of different products. It's a cleanser, a morning cream, a night cream, an eye cream, and then they use those things at like a different rate. And some people will not realize like, oh, you can sort of crack open this bundle and you can order whatever you want and whatever frequency you want, but you got to educate your consumer on that.
Yeah. That's yeah. I've been doing the same bundle the whole time. I'm like, oh, I go through the cleanser like it's like in a week or two, like the
Oh,
rest of
really?
it.
You're using
Oh
too
yeah,
much.
so quickly.
You're using too much.
Well, you guys do this like it's. I love when you're talking about the routine because like I didn't know any of this stuff, and your instructions on the packaging were so clear, even
Yeah.
down to like the little circle. Like, oh, here's how much you should put in your hand. I was like, oh,
Yeah. I mean,
this is great. I can do
yeah,
this.
it's the whole idea is like, how do you build a habit where a habit
Yeah.
doesn't exist? So the easier we can make it, like one of my favorite things that we do is we ship you 2 bottles of cleanser, one for the sink and one for the shower. So you're not like going in and out between the sink and the shower when your night and your morning routine.
Yeah. That's
People love
clever.
that.
I had no idea that's why you're doing that.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. I was like, why are there 2 of these things? I guess they know I'm using a lot.
Yeah. So you do your night
That's
routine.
awesome. Um, how do you, I've always, as I mean, going back to like the sort of the ride share thing, right? So like, you guys started men's skincare, you've expanded. Um, now you're, I don't know, do you call it unisex or what do you call
Yeah. Unisex,
it? Unisex,
gender neutral.
gender neutral. Um, but there's more brands have entered the market. So now, like, what kind of data or tracking do you have of like people testing you and coming back, or can you see any of that, or
Yeah.
how do you understand those patterns?
Uh, it's a lot of work. Data collection is super important. Like, what are people doing? How are they doing it? It's kind of what led us to, transition from a men's brand to unisex.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we started to see more and more women using our products organically.
Wow.
Yeah. From largely from like their male partners, like, oh, hey, we'd start to see, hey, my wife, girlfriend, partner is stealing my eye cream or stealing my night cream, or it was usually around the night cream products.
Interesting.
And yeah, the feedback was like, oh, these are very, very efficacious, well developed products at a price point that's very approachable compared to the you know competing women's brand.
I see.
And so we started seeing that more and more. And as you look like the male purchaser in this category is this big, or a tenth of the female audience, and just more opportunities to like deliver on this value proposition, right? Like our like shtick is we make very, very good product in a sea of like a lot of garbage out there at a very approachable price point. And we keep things super simple, right? It's like we don't launch tons of products at you. We get you in a simple routine that you can stick to where you can see the difference at a cost that's like not crushing your wallet
Yeah.
or your pocketbook, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you guys are nailing that. That's for sure. That value prop.
Yeah. And I think we can tell the story better, honestly. Like, you know, take this sort of iteration concept we talked about before. You know, we launched a lot of new products in Q4. So we expanded our skincare line. We launched a hair care line and got into body care as well. You know, but we just said, hey, we working on these products in the lab for a long time. And, you know, traditionally, I think brands just kind of launch them one at a time. Like, oh, hey, we're going to do this product launch. Hey, we're going to do this product launch. And I was like, let's just get it all out. Let's get it all out. And then we can figure out, hey, how do we cross-sell this? You know, do we add this in the first time purchase? Do we use it as gifts for people to coming back? Like now we have all these new tools that are just really like awesome product. I'm like, oh, cool. Hey, you got introduced to us as a skincare brand. Well, you know, if the skincare is not working for you, well, try the scents on our body wash.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
brighten up your morning in the shower there. Get the trio pack.
How do you with the efficacy, are women just like far more educated and discerning consumers then, so they can immediately just like you mentioned, like the wife or the girlfriend like liking the night cream, like did you just know because she tried it a couple times, like, oh, this thing's working, or because she tried something?
I mean, far more educated in the space, and also just like a level of curiosity. I think that's above the male consumer in this regard. You know, the male consumer is like, just give me something, like, fine, I'll do it. You know,
right?
And gets in the habit. Where the female customer is knowledgeable about ingredients, what's safe, what's not. They're knowledgeable about what's effective. They're knowledgeable about packaging. They're knowledgeable about like other brands that are out there and what they're doing and price points. And like, you know, it's a very different consumer.
Yeah.
I mean, obvious, but like, you know,
It's
we see it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah, because like you start with like kind of the dumb guys.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah.
How much did I put in my hand? Like I was doing.
One of the other reasons like we transitioned away from just being a men's brand was most of our direct competitor set doesn't make good product. They make garbage. And so like we didn't really want to be lumped in with like that group of companies who were literally just trying to take, you know, drugstore product, put like a DTC brand on it and hawk it via Facebook.
Right.
You know, we were like, this is not us. Like we've outgrown this. Like we make really good product that produces amazing results. And like, this is not who we are.
Yeah.
So we just set our sights to bigger and better things. And
yeah. And now your competitive set is changing pretty dramatically. Like, you know, if you were started in the men's skincare, now you're gender neutral or unisex.
Yeah.
And you've expanded into the cleansing products and deodorants and scented things. Like,
yeah.
How do you think about that? Like, cause you sort of,
it's tricky. You know, we have other brands out there that we like and that are, you know, we think do a really great job. Other direct to consumer brands, you know, in the unisex category, you know, it's like Necessaire and Malin and Goats, and in hair care, like we have a co-wash product that, you know, there's another brand out there called Hair Story that we like, and they've done a great job in there. And so, you know, we've kind of set our sights on these just higher quality, higher perceived brand value as our newer competitive set versus just the, hey, guys only DTC brands, which many of them have struggled, in the last year, like a lot of
Yeah.
consumer brands.
Yeah. I love that though, because I think oftentimes like how you think about yourself and your competitors and has these like, kind of almost subconscious implications for the decisions you make and, you know, and you can make that true, right? Like you can move, like we're like these brands, and you steadily become more and more like those brands. I mean, not saying that you aren't, but you really start creating these distinctions that.
Yeah, and it's work. It's definitely work, right? Like the biggest fear that I have as we've launched more products and gone into a more competitive space in many regards is just being like spread thin.
Hmm.
It's really easy to just, hey, talk to a guy about skincare. It's a lot harder to talk to everybody about everything.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to another thing that you guys I think do exceptionally well is your marketing and customer acquisition. You've been
Yeah.
remarkably consistent about that through time, as well as all these product launches and changing audiences. Like, was that something that you understood prior to starting geology, or how did you set that up, and how did you
Um,
manage it?
it's just unit economics discipline, right? It's like it's really easy to spend a ton of money to buy customers and then you lose money. That's ask Uber about that.
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
like but in a consumer brand, you really got to build like a foundation. So if you go in too hot and you spend too much money in a channel, the low hanging fruit customers are very easy to acquire and cheap, but you have this reverse scale effect that everybody knows about. And as you get more customers, they're more expensive.
Yeah.
And when you do that fast, it's you can blow a lot of money. And we didn't have the balance sheet to do that. So it's just old fashioned brand building. Then it takes
Yeah.
time. It takes time.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great point too, because I think one of the misconceptions of D2C was that you could build these massive legendary brands, and that shouldn't take 5 decades. I should be able to do that in 5 years, which, um, it's probably somewhere in between, but it's not 5 years. I mean, that's like, it's just so hard to get there, and you
It's
can't
super
just throw
hard.
money at it, obviously, as a
I
lot
mean,
of
you
the.
can just throw money at it until you run out of money.
Yeah, well, like the crop of 2022 IPOs might like be a cautionary tale there.
I mean, how far down is Allbirds stock? How far down did Warby Parker go public?
Yeah,
Did they?
yeah,
How far down is their stock? How far down is, name me another one.
yeah. I don't.
It's rough.
It's yeah. So you had this like, okay, so I've got to be careful. I'm going to focus on the unit economics, but up until like, I don't know, a year or so ago, like there's still all this pressure to grow like crazy. So how did you balance those things?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, you start to focus on like the less sexy areas of the business: shipping, returns, chargebacks, like annoying stuff, you
Yeah,
know? And like it's tough. I mean, we do a lot of things that make some consumers upset. Like, we don't take returns anymore
right,
because it was like out of control.
right.
And
And
you're
it's 100% loss to you. I mean, you can't resell the damn thing. So
yeah, we can't resell it.
yeah,
So it's like, hey, it's basically an ingestible product that you put on your face. Like, can't,
yeah,
even if it's not open, we can't resell it.
yeah,
So, and I think for a long time, consumers are just got used to this Amazon effect of like, oh, whatever, I could do anything. And,
Right.
we're a small brand. It's like, hey, when people are returning product, it's very difficult for us. And so, we made these changes, and it's like, some people don't like it.
Right.
And the key is being very clear and transparent about those policies, being fair, and then also delivering on our promise.
Yeah.
Right. When we don't deliver, like we have shipping hiccups or things like that, it's a lot harder to, maintain these more strict policies because, hey, we're not living up to our end of the bargain.
Right.
Right. So, but, I think you're seeing more and more like brick and mortar are changing their return policies. Big brands, e-commerce brands are changing their return policies. And like,
Yeah.
it's just a function of like the economics,
Right.
right? Like the amount of, I don't know how many people like know this term, but friendly fraud that we experience is insane. When like someone orders the product, whether it's late at night or whatever, and they decide they just didn't want it, and they'll just go on their app and be like, charge back, I didn't order this.
Yeah.
That costs us.
It's crazy because
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's basically like it's shoplifting.
Yeah. So the term is friendly fraud because why? What's the friendly
Because
part of that?
they're friendly in that they're your actual customer. They made the purchase.
I see. Okay.
It's fraud because they actually got it. It wasn't a
Yeah.
fraudulent purchase.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they call it that, but that's the term.
Yeah. And it's unique to ecom because the way that the card processing companies are, it's like the fault of the merchant. Everything's the fault of the merchant. Whereas if it was like brick and mortar,
and everybody's in on it.
Yeah.
Because the banks get their fee for the chargeback. Stripe gets their fee.
Yeah.
Shopify gets their fee. Like no one's incentivized to like stop it. But it's $100 billion a year problem.
Billion?
100 billion.
So, and is it gone up with the like economic? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, are you seeing it? Are you hearing about it increasing like month over month for everybody, or?
I don't have any data that's that granular, but it's definitely a problem.
Like when you talk to other founders, like you guys are talking about that?
Yeah.
Do blacklists exist?
That's a
Like
good question.
Is this the blog post that launches the next Uber here?
Yeah, I think there are blacklists, and I know companies are working on this. Like, we've reached out to all of our partners on this, and people are aware of it, right? Like, Visa's got a new program; they're looking at it. There's got to be some like AI software out there that's like, this particular consumer is, had chargebacks across different brands. Like Shopify and stuff should be doing this, should be paying more attention.
Well, they might be in on it though.
They might be in on it too, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Nick, I know we're almost out of time. What do you have in store for 2023? I bet you have some big plans.
Yeah, we are wrapping up some clinical trials on a very awesome acne solution. Nice. That's gentle on the skin and really highly effective. And a lot of people struggle with treating acne, and one of the issues is, the common ingredients that you use to tackle acne are pretty harsh on the skin. Okay. And that leads to just low adherence. So, people start it and then they can't get through because their skin's on fire, and that's no good.
Right.
So we developed a, unique patent pending process that uses a couple of different ingredients, and it starts gentle, and then we crank up the strength of the ingredients over time once your skin is acclimated. So
that's cool.
It's awesome. Cool. It's cool. It's really, the before and afters are absolutely amazing. People going through the system. Wow. So that's cool. We're in some conversations to bring that product into some big retailers into 2024. And then the rest of the year is like, developing more omni-channel opportunities and, learning how to be unisex brand, multi-product, multi-category, not just a men's skincare brand anymore.
All right. Well, I think it's an amazing products. I've enjoyed it. I'm your classic.
Thanks.
Didn't know anything about it, and it's become part of my morning and evening routine, which I never thought I'd have, but thanks to you, I do.
Thrilled to hear
And
that.
I encourage everybody to go check it out at geologie.com. Do the trial, write the quiz, figure yourself out, get the trial, and get
Yep.
going.
That's it.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Appreciate it. Good talking to you.
Good talking with you.